Hi, everybody. I'm Rick DiClemente. It's good to have you with us tonight. This is a topic I've been wanting to do for a long, long time. Just the moon, and you'll see what I mean as we get into it. It's a very, very difficult subject to talk about, but it's so, so important to talk about. I'm going to take my time and tell you what I know about it, what I've discovered about it. And I must say, in my 48 years, I've discovered so much in the last 10, 15, 20. You're always learning about the moon. It's just a very complex, non-grabbable, non-understandable energy. You can feel it, but you can't talk about it. And don't underrate it. Anyhow, as you know, we're going to talk about the moon. If you're not hip on what these discussions are about, then please go to my website, to starself.com, and sign up for the newsletter. And after you sign up for the newsletter and put in your email address, it will ask you to confirm it with one of those number things, number totalers. And then it'll send you a verification email. Now, um, I really want to talk about this topic. I've been wanting to for a long, long time. I'm going to ask you to delay your questions and comments till much later because I have a lot on my mind today. I guess this started, here's how I got onto it. About 20 years ago, when I was in my office near Pittsburgh, I was dealing with a particular woman who I became very fond of, still fond of today. But I noticed I was beating my head against the wall. On and on and on. And she was a Sag, and she, for some reason, this is going to be about cancers, but it's also about people that are not Cancerian, that are just lunar. But for whatever happened in her divorce, her Cancer husband insisted on still living with her. And the divorce was over. And he was just insisting. And I was trying to reason with her. And I found out that when you have a person in front of you who has strong lunar traits, they forget it. You're just not going to reason. Reason's not going to work. They're not reasonable people. They don't use, it's not that they're unreasonable, it's just that they have no place for reason. Because reason is logic that leads to a conclusion. That's not something lunar people do. Lunar people do. I feel bad. Now I feel better. I don't feel right. Now I feel better. I feel bad. And now I don't feel any better. How come I don't feel better? Talk, 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 talk all you want. You're not going to solve a lunar problem by talking. Most lunar people, and I'll describe what that means soon here. Most lunar people won't say it, maybe not even aware of it. They want you to solve the problem for them. They just want you to make them feel better. Yeah, I'm okay. You made me feel better. So when we're talking about lunar people, and the moon is the ruler of Cancer, we're talking about a lot of Cancerian energy. Yes, and I'm going to show you a chart, just the chart of the moment that we started to show. I'll try to give you an idea of what's going on there. Okay. Please don't ask me to go into each of your charts. I may if I can. This is the chart of tonight, and at a few minutes before the show started. Okay, now what makes a lunar person? It has nothing to do with your sun sign. Okay? Your moon can be strong. It can be incredibly strong. It can be way too strong. It can be really, really weak. Depends on your whole chart. And it's not simple to discern this. And I'm going to just tell you flat out, you're going to need a very good astrologer to analyze your chart to tell you whether your moon is out of shape or not, whether it's too strong, whether it's too this or that. You're not going to do this as a beginner. It's just too tricky. So these are the particular planets of tonight, and I'm not picking this chart for any reason other than the fact that I need a chart to work with. So when we're talking about a lunar person, there can be many ways that that comes about. It can come about by having the sun and other planets in the sign of Cancer. The more planets in the sign of Cancer, the more lunar they are. And notice I make a difference between lunar and Cancerian. Now, they're very similar, but yet they're slightly different. Okay? The moon is about feeling. It is your second most important planet. It's how you sense your way through. It describes what you're like on your couch. Sit back and relax. It's about what makes you comfortable, what your needs are at home, what your family's like. The moon has so many sides to it. What your property's like, what your mother was like, what your parents were like, what your family heritage is like, what your feelings are like, what your reactions are like. The moon is a really big, broad part of you in opposition to the sun. The sun is more of a dynamic, out front, the ego, the consciousness, what your basic personality is like when you shine forth. So you could say in some ways the sun is about your external, extroverted part, and the moon is about your introverted part. You could say that. That's not entirely true, but it's basically true. So you can get Cancerian and become very lunar by having a lot of planets in Cancer. You can have it by having the moon on an angle. See the four angles? One, two, three, four. I can't get over this. I keep telling you every week, and I'm learning more and more. When a planet is near an angle, it's a big deal. Here's the moon. Just set. The moon came up 12 hours ago, and it's now setting. Then, if you look in the sky, the moon has just gone over the horizon. It's just past Pluto, but you can't see Pluto because it's so far away. So the moon is very important in this chart because of its close proximity to the descendant. If it were here, it would be strong. If it were here, it would be strong. If the moon is next to the sun, it usually is. If the moon is opposite the sun, means you're born during a full moon. It usually is strong. If that moon is part of an eclipse at your birth time, it's usually strong. Other times that the moon is really strong is when you have a triangle, a T-square, two planets opposite each other, and they make a triangle to a third point. And if that moon is on the third point, that's a T-square to the moon. That puts great emphasis on the moon. Okay, now I would have to analyze each of your charts individually to talk about whether your moon is strong or not. But what I'm talking about is this. When people have a strong moon in their chart, these are the people in your family. And what I say by family, I mean your circle of friends and your family. These are the ones that remember everybody's birthday. These are the ones that cry a lot. These are the ones that's all family, family, family. These are the ones into your history and your lineage and what did grandma do. And when you walked in grandma's house and you smelled all those wonderful smells of what she was cooking, and you have that chicken soup. That's the moon. I think you understand. Don't use logic because it just doesn't have a place here. The moon is, I got to make you feel better. I'm not going to hand you a book on Aesop's fables. I'm going to hand you some chicken soup. Why? Because it's got smoke coming out of it. It feels good, but mostly because it's made with love. That'll make you feel better. When the grandma bends over you or the grandpa and says, "What can I do to make you feel better, honey? How you feeling?" That's the moon. You can't do without it, and you sure can't do it with it. It's a very confusing planet. Thank God we have it, but it's not easy to deal with. Lunar people are usually the center focus of the family. Usually, the whole family has to dance around the lunar person. Usually, not always. That can be a healthy thing. That can be an unhealthy thing. It can be troublesome. It cannot be troublesome. Good morning, Kathy. Anyhow, lunar people, you get a real strong feeling of what a lunar person is like if you just sit and watch Meryl Streep talk. She's a very Cancerian person. That warm, kind of giggly, but really warm, reaching out, emotional person. Like I said, if a person in your family, their moon is too strong, then they're the one that's just sensitive about everything. They get upset over things real easily, but they're also the one that wants to patch it up and bring the family back together and hold the family unit together. So it's a very confusing energy. Now, I was dealing with a person for a while. Let me just show you this chart as an example. Use this chart as an example. Okay, this person I dealt with for a long time. And this person had the moon in Virgo. It was right here, right there. I mean, I dealt with this person for years. So when the moon was in Virgo, what did I expect to see? Pickiness, cleanliness, hardworking, pickiness, particular. All those things are true. All those things are very true. And it took me years to figure out that it wasn't the sign that the moon was in, it was the moon itself. I mean, this took me years. One day I said, "Why is this person so lunar? Why is this person so Cancerian?" It's because the moon is so strong. Forget what sign it's in. It's in Virgo, and the person really is Virgoan, but the person was real and still is very Cancerian. You're just a lot like when a planet is near the angle, you are like that planet. I don't care what sign it's in. If you got Mars in Capricorn, you're very Aries-like. You're very Martian-like, to put it better. If you have Neptune at an angle and Neptune is in Aquarius, you're going to pick up Aquarian traits, but you're very Piscean. Wrong. You're very Neptunian. This is saying it properly. If you have Saturn at the top of your chart in Aries, yes, you're going to be very Aryan-like. You're going to pick up a lot of Aries quality, but you're going to be very Saturnian. Saturnian. This is why when Rick and I and others talk about what planet rules what sign. We're not jiving you. We're not throwing some notebook pages past you. It's really ultra important that you learn this, that you learn what planet rules what sign. It's one of the main things about astrology. And really, in astrology, there aren't that many things that you have to know. This is one of them. When I say, what does Mercury rule? You got to know right away. Virgo and Gemini. What does Jupiter rule? Sagittarius. They're almost woven together. They're that strongly related. So you could have on the rising sign Jupiter rising, and it might be in the sign of Pisces. And Pisces is real kind of laid back and soft. But Jupiter's rising. Yeah, it makes you very Sagittarian. It makes you very Jovian, Jupiterian, because Jupiter's rising. So once I saw that, and I went, duh, about 7,000 times, duh, 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 I realized, my God, how have I missed this? This person is very lunar. And now remember all the talks I've had with this person trying to be logical, trying to be logical. Logic doesn't work. They want you to fix the problem. What all these things you're saying, wonderful theories, Rick, wonderful theories, wonderful book. I read the book, but I don't feel any better. That's what the moon's about. And that's why it can be troublesome. And the moon is certainly the person in your family that you can't do without because they're the real heartbeat, the real warmth, center hearth. Think of the moon as the hearth in your family, very much like the sun is the hearth, being Leo. But also, they can really be a pain. They can be a real pain. And that all comes down to how that lunar person was raised. I'm going to give you some extreme examples tonight, just to give you the picture. Um, 30, 40 years ago, I had a couple friends and they had just had a baby. And the baby was born with a sun in Cancer and the moon in Cancer, and the moon was strong. And I went, oh my God, this child is so sensitive. And the parents were very nice, but the dad was a Virgo. And they asked me any advice, and that's very dangerous. And the only thing I will tell people with new babies is I don't want to ruin their excitement of watching this child grow and unfold. So I'll tell them a couple things to keep an eye on about their nature, to be guided, etc. But this with this child, it was really obvious that this little boy was going to be ultra sensitive. Ultra. Parents, nice as it can be. Father was a Virgo, but a very mild one. Moon in Libra, very nice one, etc., etc. The kid gets to about 16 years of age, can't handle the world, and kills himself. I'm not saying that I forecasted this, that I saw it, but I did see, sorry to say, I did see that he would have a hard time dealing with the world. And a lot of people that have Asperger's, as a Cancerian illness, have very lunar aspects in their chart, being oversensitive to things. Um, and then the typical thing that astrologers, you may not know this, the typical thing that astrologers are asked during suicide is, was he murdered or was it suicide? Very common, because believe it or not, they want you to tell them that the child was murdered. And it's really a really sad, sad story. So usually I just say, I'm not touching this subject. I don't know. God bless your child. May he rest in peace. Because there's so much guilt when a family member has suicide, and it's understandable. Um, but anyhow, uh, I remember dealing with what was her name? Oh, I can't remember her name. Angie Dickinson. A friend of mine was the godmother of Angie Dickinson's daughter. And Angie Dickinson's daughter was a real hypersensitive Cancer. And asked this lady, who happened to be a marvelous healer, to be her godmother. And of course, she said, yeah. And the girl got to a point in her teens where she couldn't stand living anymore, couldn't stand it anymore. And she begged this lady to take her to Switzerland to put her through euthanasia, because you can do it there legally. And one thing led to another, and all the legalities fell through, and the girl was unable to do it in Switzerland, and ended up committing suicide. And these kind of suicides that I'm talking about are not usually single event specific. They're just, some people are just so sensitive that they just can't take it. The world is just too hard on them. Period. They just can't handle it. So that was an intriguing story, an intriguing story. So when I'm dealing with my clients now, one of the things I look for, I've been taught from myself, I've been taught to look for almost instantly, are they too lunar or not? Is the moon too strong? Is it too strong? Is it dominating the chart, or is it relatively mild? Well, if it's too strong, what you've got to do with these children as they grow is you've got to walk a fine line, because usually they're pulling on mama's coat strings. They're usually following mama. I've seen my cats. I've had Cancer cats that won't leave mama alone. They're right on their coat strings, following everything they do. They're just really addicted to the mother principle. It's understandable. Now, what you've got to do is you've got to use extra white gloves when you're handling them, because they're very sensitive. You never, ever mock them. Never. Just can't handle it. Even when you're joking, they don't understand that. Now, what I have found, without a doubt, with the sensitive people of the zodiac, the Cancers or lunar people, the Neptune people or the Pisces people, who are very ultra sensitive. I have found out one of the best ways to deal with them is to realize that they're programmable. They're so sensitive that you can take advantage of them and program them. Oh, honey, you can do that. You can handle algebra. Shoot, you can handle that. I'll see you later. And what you do not do is hover over them as they're answering each little line on their algebra problem. Yeah, that's right, honey. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Don't baby them. Don't do it. Because then they start to believe that they need to be babied. Then they start to demand to be babied. Then they think that they can handle something. And a lot of Cancerian people I know are very fierce and very strong. So you got to play to that side of them, which is programmable. Yeah, I know you're going to speak to the audience tomorrow for your junior high assembly. You'll do just fine, honey. I ain't worried about you. What's going on now? Because they're going to pick up from you your attitude about them. They're going to pick up your fears if you cast any kind of aspersion of doubt. They can't handle it. Oh my, what am I going to do? That's the worst thing you can do is hover and worry. And usually, remember now, there are four cardinal signs in the zodiac. One of them's Cancer. That's not haphazard. Cancers are the water leaders, leading you in feeling. Ann Landers and her sister, who was the other one? Uh, dear
Kathy.
both gossipers and advice givers, both were Cancerian. Why? Because they're leaders and helping you learn how to guide yourself so that you will feel okay. You can break Cancer and the moon down to two simple words, or maybe call it three words. Feel okay. Do you feel okay? I used to have when I was little, I used to have a Cancerian uncle. And I can remember I didn't know astrology then, but now I can look back on it and see that he was always bending over when he saw me. Rick, you feeling okay? Yeah. Are you sure you're really feeling okay? Yeah. Thanks, Uncle. You're welcome. With that bending over, coming into your dimension, are you really okay? That's the beautiful thing of Cancer. That's the beautiful thing of the moon. I don't care what the reasons are. Do you feel okay? That's a really, really nice quality to have when you're a little kid and you feel misunderstood or you feel overlooked, etc. So you got a real delicate situation. I remember a man who called this show. This was 3, 4 years ago. A cancer man with an ultra sensitive cancer child. You see how big my eyes are getting. This was a difficult situation. This guy was, he came to me for help. How am I going to deal with this cancer daughter? Well, he had taught the daughter to be as helpless as he felt. And so the daughter was. And the daughter became ultra dependent on him. Codependency for sure. And then I'm sure without examining too closely, he became ultra dependent on her. And then the danger started, because then he started to look for me on the show for ways to solve the problem. I can't solve a problem. So you got to walk that fine line between using white gloves, treating them tenderly, and at the same time, not babying them. Because cancers have a very tough side. They're very strong in a lot of ways. In other surveys that I've seen, there's nobody in the zodiac that's a better business person than a Cancer female. Nobody can touch it. Why? Because they're tenacious. They got great big claws and they'll use them. They will use them. These animals that pop out to us through the zodiac were chosen brilliantly. All of them. Even to the fact that it walked sideways. Just perfectly chosen. Jimmy Cagney, would you ever think he was a Cancer? Tough old rough guys. In the Western movies, a lot of them were Cancerian. And the reason about that is Number one, you want to talk about a mama lion's instinct. You ever want to mess with somebody's kids when there's a mama lion there? You don't want to do that. That's the mama lion instinct to fight to the death. Very intense. Now, Liza and I had a long talk the other day. We've had a lot of long talks about cancer when we were writing the book. I remember writing the book and going through Aries, Taurus, Gemini. And then Liza said, you know what we were trying to describe the natures of these signs. She said, these first few signs, they're a lot like the pure element. Aries, they're a lot like pure fire. Yeah. Taurus, they're a lot like pure earth. Yeah, true. Gemini, they're a lot like pure air. True. So we wanted to say, oh, that whole quadrant is about the purity of the elements. Then along came Cancer. And Cancer's over the fourth one. It's the first one of the second quadrant. So we didn't know what to do with that one. Then Liza said to me the other day, she said, isn't Cancer the mother of the zodiac? Isn't Cancer the mother of the zodiac? And I said, no, and yes, and no, and yes. So it's a very confusing answer. So you have to ask yourself, is Cancerian ruled by water? Oh my God, yes. It's all about a big pile of feelings. And they're here to teach the rest of us how to deal with feelings, or visually, how to take a dip in the ocean, come back out. That's the visual of it. Dip in the ocean, survive, come back out. But it came to me during our discussions. In fact, we need to do this more often. We really cranked out some good stuff the other day. We hadn't done that in several years. Um, the soul at one level is not put together until the fifth sign. Doesn't mean the first four signs don't have a soul. It's not what I mean. But on one dimension, if you follow the book closely, the self doesn't get really constructed until the sign of Leo. Well, if that's the case, then how can Cancer be the sign of the mother? If the self is being constructed in the fifth sign. So when you watch Cancer, it's a very complex sign because they are the queens of the children. They are the mothers of the zodiac. At the same time, they're not. But what the hell does that mean? Well, what it means is the sign of Cancer or strongly lunar people are very dependent on the other. Because you don't learn how to swim just by being thrown in the water. A lot of people do, but that ain't easy. You kind of need somebody to help pull you out and talk about it and review the situation a little bit. So Cancer is, but they're not. They are, but they're not. It's the same situation. So when you have somebody, um, I will imagine that most of you have tried to recharge for somebody else. Even if it's just a little piece here, little piece there. Okay. If you're having any difficulty reading for that person, look and see where their moon is. I don't really care what sign it's in. Look and see, is the moon really strong? Is it strongly placed? Is it at the point of a triangle? Is it on the top of the chart all by itself? Are they very lunar? Likewise, people that aren't lunar. When people aren't lunar, they don't have a lot of feelings. It's not easy to get through to their feelings. It's not easy to see how they pivot around their feelings. So you have to be ultra careful when you're looking at the person's moon. Okay. Now, the big phrase that seems to have come up really strong lately in the past 15 years is codependency. And it is definitely a Cancerian word or a lunar word. And as an astrologer, you can definitely see where codependency has become a big deal. In this country in the last 20 years, it's no happenstance that it happened just at the same time that we no longer could have faith in our institutions. Want to hang on somewhere, there's nowhere to hang on to. Institutions have crumbled. Well, what do you do then? Well, it's not easy, is it? But the answer is to be as dependent as you can on yourself, as non-codependent as possible. And when I see relationships, I see so many people that come to me like the old days, and they really think that there's a planet out there that's going to hit them and bring Mr. Perfect to them. In the old days, that's what it's all about. Every reading ended with, oh, by the way, do you see anybody in my future? It was just very common. And I was dumb enough or inexperienced enough to look for certain planets. Is your Venus getting hit? Is something going through your seventh house? And I would look for indicators of relationships coming to them. And I would be right about 1 out of 40 times. Okay, I would think. Because what I have learned, dear Claudia, what I have learned, and I've told you many times, relationships come to you when you dump your junk. And that's really the truth. They come to you when you dump your junk. When you get rid of your codependencies. And I've told you this story before. That if I'm walking through the airport and you're a codependent woman and you're sitting down and I'm walking by you and I'm a healthy adult, I'm going to sense that there's trouble here. I'm going to sense that I don't want involved. I'm going to keep on walking. All right, now the woman sitting there, she's the healthy one. I'm the codependent one. I'm walking by. I'm going to sense, ooh, there's somebody that I might latch onto because I can latch onto their strength. But the person sitting there is going to kind of give me a look like, I don't think so. We do this all the time. Don't give me that look, Erica. Okay. Third scenario, we're both codependent. Oh man, that's the dangerous one. Because hey, how you doing? I'm fine. Have a seat. Okay, how you doing? Have some coffee. Okay. And we make a little unconscious agreement that I'm gonna hide behind you from life. And you can hide behind me from life. It'll be rosy. We can have wonderful sex and hide from all our problems. Right? Right. For about 2 weeks. Then what? God, you can answer me now. What happens after 2 or 3 weeks of one of those kind? What happens to those kind?
Well,
You
they either get either more deeply dysfunctional because they're like latched on to the dysfunction.
Fast on to each other's jugular.
Yeah.
It's true.
Or it just, you know, or somebody wakes up for some reason, but usually they latch on, I think.
Yeah, they do latch on,
Be
and
that codependent.
yeah, and a lot of them have really good intentions, and they really do want intimacy, etc. But they're not really looking for a partner. They're really looking for someone they can hold on to. If somebody just threw them in the ocean, who can I hold on to so I don't sink? That's one of the main things about cancers and lunar people is they're really obsessed with not with being abandoned, obsessed with being abandoned or sinking. You can't blame them. So the ultimate is the characterization of the healthy guy walking by the healthy woman or whatever, and they see each other and they say, "Oh, there's a possibility. How are you? Well, how are you? Let's have a drink." Okay. Then you go from there and you start to match each other with your powers and with your abilities instead of with your disabilities. Here, hold my wooden leg for a while. Okay, I'll hold your wooden leg. Okay. But anyhow, so that's what another word for the moon in astrology is wooden leg. It's another word for it. Rick is shaking his head back and forth. I think he doesn't agree with me or something. What do you think, Rick?
I'm actually still back where you were talking about um, something you just said prior to this made me think God help the Cancer mother with a Leo child because they are not ready for individuation.
Yeah,
The Cancer mother.
right.
They want that apron string to never let
That's
go.
exactly right. That's exactly right.
They'll
And
replace the apron before they cut the string.
and the Leo wants nothing more than to individuate. Look
Right.
at me. Look what I can do. And that's what it needs.
Or I made it. I'm my own person.
That's exactly right. That's exactly what it needs to do. You can't
Right.
blame the Cancer mother. Its nature is to protect. So, what is one of the main reasons that I'm bringing up all this stuff? Because the United States and Canada were both born in July. That's the reason.
For a bunch of lunatics.
Well, you could say that. But you can also notice a tremendous difference between the two countries. Okay? Tremendous difference. And also one pays for all the weapons for the other one. So that's kind of a big difference too. That's why they got health insurance and we don't. But anyhow, I don't want to get blackballed here. Talk about that kind of stuff in this medium. Because believe me, they'll do it. But anyhow, it's just Cancerian or lunar to be protective. And there's one sign in the zodiac that has to protect itself, and that's the moon. It just has to. No matter what, that's what it has to do. That's its job. And just like a Virgo feels its job to fix things, and just like Libra's job is to balance out things and compare things, and just like Leo's job is to express that self. Cancer's job, lunar job, is to protect itself. Well, that's fine and dandy if it doesn't self-destruct. So you may ask yourself, how could the Cancerian energy be self-destructing in this country right now? Number one, the fear tactics of the GOP always seems to work with the GOP crowd that's listening. Let's just scare the hell out of everybody and let's elect somebody who's a real hawk, is going to defend us, and we'll be okay. That's worked for a long, long time. Doesn't work now. And if you showed in the past that you were tender and sensitive to the rest of the populace, look what happened to Jimmy Carter. You're seen as being weak. So the Cancer energy is a extremely complex energy. It's no, let's show you again here. It's no accident that Cancer is at the bottom of the chart. Not the sign Cancer, but the fourth house. The fourth house is at the bottom of all charts. Doesn't mean it's the bottom, doesn't mean it's the lowest. It means it's the farthest away from here. This is the public. This is out there in the masses, out there being seen, being written about, talked about. This is the cave, going back in the cave. The crab walking sideways, going underneath the rocks, trying to stay safe. That's what it has to do. It's what it has to do. So the question becomes with a lot of people that I see, and then we'll open it up for questions here in 10 minutes, and statements. The question is, if you have a lunar person in the family who's exhibiting some of these qualities to a unusual degree, how do you deal with it? How do I deal with that man, Mr. Cancer, who called in and had the Cancer daughter wrapped around, she had him wrapped around her finger. She wasn't going to help herself do anything because all she had to do was whine and he would come in and solve it. He was totally in prison by this. What was I going to say? I don't know what to say because, and maybe you want to talk to Rick on this one. I don't know. He seems to be more soul oriented than more of a soul man than me. um, the soul knows what it's doing. The soul knows what it's doing. When you're becoming codependent on somebody else, when you're codependent and you're meeting somebody else that's codependent, you know it. You know it when it's happening. And how many people you've seen it beautiful, beautiful to see people that are getting past their codependency, have gotten past it, and they start to run into somebody again in the future that's codependent, and they go, oh no, oh no, 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 no. I've been there. Claudia, I've been there. I don't want that. Tell us about that. How it does.
I have
Tell us about how it feels.
I'm a professional ex-codependent. I should have gotten a badge. And I am so happy, grateful. I don't know what the word is exactly, that I'm no longer like that. But I got to tell you, there's this one relationship I was in, and I was definitely codependent. And he had Neptune right next to his moon, exact degree.
Oh
There
man.
was no leaving him. It took
Oh
me 7 years.
man.
But of course, I was messed up too. You don't get into this by accident. But I hear what you're saying. He couldn't deal with it. Life was too much. So he
Didn't matter what his sun sign was.
no, and he actually was an Aries. You wouldn't know it
Yeah.
because he was so he it was too much. It's probably still too much, but to your point, I knew it. I knew it. I knew I was in a messed up, codependent, oh, you're my oxygen sort of relationship. And I'm not, not only am I I felt like that was a person ago. But there's something to be said about recognizing it really early, and once you really know what you want and who you are, and that nobody can really make you happy. Nobody.
Yeah, and in astrology, it comes back and it really teaches you that astrology is all about becoming responsible for yourself.
Yeah, I read,
It
was
just
reading,
is.
yes,
Doesn't it?
Astrology Karma and Transformation last night, and he said something exactly like what you just said. It is up to us there, when you have difficult aspects and you have difficult things in your chart, it's up to us to be responsible and be accountable.
And
Eh,
that's coming from a Libra that wrote that book with the sun next to Neptune.
wow. Yeah.
He had to pay his dues to write that book. And he's also been unable to write any books without a partner.
Really?
All his books are with partners. Or
Yeah.
would, yeah. Now, thank you for that. A thing about that is really intriguing. And that's why I've really enjoyed in the last 5 years doing my work with past life regression. I don't even know what you want to call it. But what I have determined in my research is that in your past life, that's where this stuff came from. It's how somebody taught you, how the mayor taught you, how the leader of the school taught you, how the parents taught you, how the religion taught you. But that's where this moon Neptune came from, this guy you dated. Didn't fall out of the sky. Oh, they fell next to each other. No. It means that in his past lifetime, he was just way too sensitive. How does that happen? Well, maybe every time he responded, maybe all the people all around him said, well, you're not being sensitive enough. He said, really? We don't know how it got there, but that's how it gets there. And that's how it's programmed into this current life cycle. And that's what's so neat about what's happening now is we're all starting to crawl out of our own hole. We're all starting to crawl out of it. I really think so. We're crawling out of it now. And that's really neat because as we crawl out of it, we're much healthier. And we're looking around and we're seeing all our friends. And they're much healthier. Any comments on this, Linda? Anybody? Any comments on this insight? We'll go to Erica after Linda. Go ahead.
I just I just think what Claudia said really hits me because I look at, I've done therapy for forever and therapy's really helped me. Don't get me wrong. I think therapy's been great. But one of the most important moments of my life was you telling me when we were looking at my chart, and I can't even remember where this was.
20 years ago.
It was a long time ago. And you said to me, we were talking to me about my moon in the first house, like practically sitting on the
Right.
on the ascendant, and I'm already Scorpio ascendant. I mean, I've got all these issues, and the moon's sitting right there in Scorpio. And you said your moon is a wild horse, and you don't let it run. And there's that Venus in Virgo that sits at the top of your chart that's telling the moon, shut up. And then the moon's going, hey, I went out. And I thought the minute I understood that, I understood so many things about myself that were a mystery. It was just a mystery to me. And now I just, oh yeah, I'm having these big emotions right now, or, oh, I'm eating a lot of junk right now. I'm really stuffing things, it's like, because Virgo's tool for stuffing stuff is food. If you don't want to feel anything, let's just eat some stuff, and it's just been it was a hugely important part of my life to understand that my chart was not destiny. It was like a blueprint for how I'm built.
Right.
And by looking at the chart, then I can have a lot more, I'm not going to call it control, agency. I have agency in
Yes.
my own
And
life.
you being a Libra woman, you very smart and you were ready. You took it and ran with it. you saw it right away, and that's not always the case.
I
And
went out and bought a silver horse charm for my charm bracelet for my wild horse in me. So
yeah,
you
it
know,
wasn't coming out. It was too behaved. You got to behave. You're in a college. You're a professor. What are they going to think, Libra? What are they
very
going to think? And boy, you handled that well.
well, this semester we our theme for our course was aliens and UFOs. So we've completely broken out of the mold.
Very good. Excellent. You're to be congratulated. Miss Erica, did you want to say something, dear?
Yes, just by happenstance, I was watching Netflix yesterday and I came along this documentary about Pamela Anderson. I think that's her name, the one from Baywatch, the
Pisces.
one that was married to Tommy Lee. It was the story of her life. And I thought, gee, I wonder what her life story is. And it was unbelievable. She's a Cancerian, Cancer in the first house. She was raised by parents she was raised in Canada by parents who had this really kind of, I guess you could call it loving. They're very attracted to each other physically, but then they would fight like cats and dogs, and then they'd get together again and go have mad passionate sex. And they saw this as kids. And she got put down. She got abused a couple of times by a babysitter and an uncle or something as a child. And she was made to feel like she was invisible or she wasn't good enough or something. And then, we know that she became a Playboy bunny, and she was married many times. But I mean, the whole time you could see how she said, I just want to be in love. If she couldn't be in love, then she couldn't be married anymore. And then she just got divorced and she wanted to be a mother so badly. And everybody just disappointed her. And I mean, you just go through the ringer watching what she went through in her life. She got so taken advantage of because they found private videos that she and her husband had made on their honeymoon, and it got spread all over the world and everybody,
Yeah, that's right.
But it's just like, talk about, codependent, that husband had to be the one that was going to save her, like you were saying. But at the same time, she'd say, okay, we're leaving for the beach. And everybody would just snap to and get up and follow.
Hey, everybody, look at the symbol above Erica's head.
New moon. And then a couple of other things I was thinking was Cancerian people would have a very hard time if they had been adopted. Talk about your mother giving you up, or they grew up in foster care. And I know someone who grew up in foster care and ended up addicted and got addicted in Vietnam. And then he killed his girlfriend because she wanted to leave him. And he wrapped her in plastic and hid her under the bed.
Now, a couple of things.
So he wouldn't get caught until he got caught.
Couple of things I want to mention about that is very true. This is why you see Scorpios who are betrayed. Doesn't matter whether they're really betrayed or they think they are. Doesn't matter. In their mind, they're betrayed. This is why they got a reputation of coming back, and because to them, the betrayal is that big of a deal. When a Cancer or somebody with a lot of Cancerian or lunar traits, doesn't have to be a Cancer. is not given what they need when they're little. When it appears to them that they did not get what they needed when they were little, then I don't care what you say. You're going to pay the price. I did
So
not get what huh?
this person was definitely Cancer.
Yeah, well, it can be Cancer, Lunar, doesn't matter.
And he was a very nice person to talk to and an artist and all this kind of
Some of the
stuff.
greatest people in the world, yes.
But when I found out about his life, it was like,
Yeah.
talk about get me out of there as quickly as my legs can carry me.
So the question is, what do you do if you're in a family unit and you got this one personality that runs everything? But feel sorry for me. What do you do if the whole thing just keeps rotating around this one person, no matter what you do? What do you do? And I don't have an answer for you. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know what your answer is. Linda J, you are,
Well, my answer is if you're a kid and it's your mother that it all runs around like that, you end
yeah.
up in therapy for 50 years.
Oh yeah, if it's the
That's
mother.
all I'm gonna say about that,
I've seen a lot of children just helpless because they get nothing because it's all about the mom. It's all about the mom not having gotten what she needed.
That's right. I mean, it can become a generational thing that, which is why I'm very proud and happy to say I didn't have kids. Not that I didn't want kids,
Right.
but it ended with me.
And that's why it's so good to see the kind of work that Deneen is doing the last couple of weeks, talking about how to unwind and get free of those curses, she called it. Come on, Miss Teresa, you're sitting there very quietly with your name crossed out. That's we've always getting brilliant things from your thoughts.
Wow, there's a lot to say and not enough of time. But I do what Claudia was saying about knowing who you are. I think that's something that we don't think about enough. Who are we? And I think we're in an evolution too. I mean, we're evolving all the time. You know, what you said, Rick, about taking responsibility, how important that is. I was a therapist for a lot of years, and I left it because I knew there was something better. I knew there was something more than sitting around talking about the past. And I knew that there could be something that would help myself and people understand that it's not about the past as much as it is about the present moment and the power that we have right now in this moment. I mean, there's just a lot to think about. I do have a sister who's a typical Cancerian, and it's funny because I'm sitting here thinking about her the whole time we're talking about cancers. And she was 2 years older than me, so I'm
What's the
second born.
story? What's the story with her?
Well, it's true. The whole family revolves around her, and so it's giving me some insight and to the relationship that we had, because I was born 2 years after her, so I'm really a second born.
Well,
And
what did the various people around your sister try that worked and didn't work? In order
well, you have to go along with her all the time, or else she cuts you out. She's ruthless, but she has this side to her that is welcoming. She does all of the family get-togethers, the reunions. She has them at her place all the time, and and so she has that ability to bring people in and together and welcome them, but people don't see the
But the
other side
problem
to her.
is with that you just said, the problem with that is, as I talked with Eliza, is that real? Is that really real? That she really wants to love everybody in the family or control everybody?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't want to place a judgment on her. I mean, I have my own ideas of what I think is going on, but I don't want to judge her, but definitely family is it for her, and if you're not in her corner,
Look out.
you're out. You're
Oh,
out.
very good. She could have a
Yeah.
moon in Scorpio too. Rick, thank you, Teresa. Rick, what's on your mind? You're
Teresa, hang out for a minute. Stay
Yeah.
there. I'm wondering, Rick, I understand what you thought about the codependency issue. I have more concerns about the toxicity of Cancer leaning towards narcissism, which strikes me that, yes, there's this big interest in the love, but it's not about love being shared all around. That those claws want to bring it to me, 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 me. And if you can't love me, you're out.
That's right. That's what I see, in some of the Cancer people I know, but
Yeah, no fun.
One thing I've noticed about, I have 3 planets in Cancer, and when I think about my life as a teen, in my 20s, even in my 30s, the emotional manipulation was off the charts. And I see it in other people, and I recognize it like that, because we all do this, right? Once you used to be something, then you go, oh my God, I used to do that a lot. And it doesn't appear like it. It appears like, poor me, or let me get somebody on my side. It's all this stuff. In other words, it's all this manipulation of those around you with your emotional state. And then they do whatever you want or say whatever you want. It's really, and they're this, they can be very tenderhearted, but it depends on the maturity and the self-awareness. Because,
Evolution.
yeah.
Hey, I'd add one thing to what you said earlier, Rick. Your emphasis on making sure we start to see the difference between the lunar influence and the Cancerian influence, I think that's very helpful and important. And I think it can even be so confusing that I heard you saying Cancerian sometimes, and I think you might have been thinking lunar.
That's
because
right.
it's even hard for you to bring yourself to wrap around.
That's right. Yes.
But I'm curious where you think the fourth house emphasis may create. Will it move more towards lunar or
What do you
Cancerian?
mean, will it?
In a chart, do you look at a variety of planets in that fourth house to emphasize somebody being lunar or Cancerian? Or does it depend on other things?
I have to look at that, like you said, exactly like you said. Then I have to total the whole chart.
Right.
A
Yeah.
lot of times, as you know, I study a lot of killers. And a lot of those people who have killed have had very bad backgrounds, but a lot of them have really been hurt.
Mhm.
And they just get an attitude. Well, you're going to hurt me, and I've been hurt all my life. So what the hell's the difference what I do to you? It's very sad, tragic. But what does it come down to? when you're watching all these different things, comes down to the same old boring story. We have to love each other and watch out for each other and take care of each other. And the zodiac is properly named in this book. Zodiac is exquisite. It is really self-smart. It knows how to take care of itself. And we need the Aries over here, and we need the Leos over here. We need everybody doing their part, you know? And it's shocking to me, shocking that that book is 12 years old now, that more people haven't come up with that theory since we wrote it. Yes, Teresa.
So I just wanted to say one more thing before
Just
we
one.
close it. Yeah, well, maybe a few, maybe a few.
One
So
and a half.
none of this is about judgment. It's about our evolution. Just
That's
like
right.
you said, the zodiac is an evolutionary thing. And when you talked about past lives, yes, we do come into this life, I believe, knowing what our script is going to be and choosing the script specifically so that we can experience being lunar or
That's
Cancerian or
exactly right.
Libran or Sagittarius or any of them. So it's just, so we should make it more fun. In other words, we should just make it more fun because it's just really all a game anyway. It's an
Yeah, but
illusion.
see, what you're telling us is you're pretty evolved soul. From my ears, what I'm hearing after hearing many people, you're up above a lot of it. And I don't mean you're any better. It's just
Right.
you've transcended a lot of this stuff. You really, really have. You know, and I've had a lot of cancer people recently that I've talked to. Um, and I've had to make them realize nobody's trying to harm you. That's one of the main cancer qualities is the fear of being abandoned and the fear of being attacked. And if you look around you honestly, look around you with no judgment and watch Cancerian people in your environment. And you'll watch them walk into a room with a very defensive posture. They're looking around and wondering who's going to attack next. And that very posture causes them to be attacked. Now, when I tell them that, they all go, oh, wow. And they learn from it and they take that off their shoulders and they feel much better about it. And then you see the truer cancer come out, which is the more childlike. The true cancer is the Lady Di. That's the true childlike, pure, loving, pure, sensitive. The problem is that they're so vulnerable. They are vulnerable. And it's also their power. We haven't heard a word from Miss Kathy. Kathy needs to stop behaving down there. Tell us what are your observations, Miss Kathy iPhone?
Well, it just occurred to me during your last comments that my sister and my brother-in-law are both cancers. And your book helped me really understand where they were coming from about their home life and why it was so hard for them to take vacations because they don't want to leave their home. And
That's true. That's true.
yeah, so it really helped me understand them. And I even told my sister that I read this book that talked about this and that and the other. And she goes, yeah, that she said she felt that way exactly. So that was really, that really helped me a lot to understand her and where she was coming from.
Good. And you'll notice that Anita, our friend who's not on camera, mentioned a few minutes ago about perhaps cancer see themselves as leaders. Yeah, they're leaders. you're leaders of ideas, you have leaders of practicality, you have leaders of thinking, then you got leaders of emotion. That's what Cancer is supposed to do. But some are leaders and some are kidding themselves that they're leaders.
Mhm.
That's the difference. Are you really a leader? Are you really thinking about leading, which means taking the brunt of things, being out front of the parade? Or are you not? So it's not an easy question, as with all the signs. All 12 of the signs are just so incredibly different from each other.
Right.
Yeah, Rick, go ahead.
I wanted to address the Cancerian man and the Cancerian child. I think it may have been the one whose child killed themselves.
Yeah, my friends had a cancer with all the plans.
Right. And you somewhere in that time frame were discussing how do you help them move through the emotion because it's not logical. And my thinking is, okay, throw logic out, set it aside, because that's not the wheelhouse they're working with. Perhaps there's a need for an experience that can emotionally help process. I suspect that's a better framework for them to actually go through some sort of awareness that will help them touch in with emotion and experience values and motivation and reasons for stirring emotions into a healthy place.
Well, it's just so normal as a parent to want to question yourself.
Sure.
What did you do to cause it? They didn't cause it.
Right.
I don't think so. They seem awful normal to me. The poor child just couldn't react any better. It's not the suicide. Think of all the hundreds of days before that suicide.
Yeah, and there's
The
an
child got
ongoing,
through non-suicide.
there's a common issue with children that because they are thinking it occupy things occupy their minds, but they don't express them. And parents are going to address every need they can bring themselves to and try and help them with those things. But if they won't voice what their concerns are, there's a lot of things parents pay the penalty for
Well,
that
the child
children
sometimes,
never express.
that's right. Sometimes the child just can't do it. It's tough. I tell you
Yeah.
what, well, I'm not going to be a Cancer in my next lifetime. In fact, I'm not going to be anything in my next lifetime. And if I have to be something, I'm going to be an Aquarian. Yes, the Anita says enlightened Cancers know when to lead, whether to get out of the way. Yeah. Why don't you put your microphone on and talk to us, Anita? I think that's an excellent point. Well, you're a very enlightened leader type of Cancer anyway.
Hi there.
Hello. Just
Well,
talk to
okay. Well, I really, I think what rings true with me tonight is that I'd like to explore is that mom, non-mom.
yeah.
And I think that does go to what Rick was saying about not being held responsible. That it's oh gosh, it's almost like it's almost as though you were looking at chromosomes, the way chromosomes interact and move, that life as through time, Cancerians, we do need to let go of believing or feeling that our children are exactly as sort of that we created them to be what they are. But it's also really enlightening when you realize that that's not the case, that Leo child that I have is exactly what Rick was talking about earlier. He is the one that, when I talked to him today, said, well, this is what we're going to do on the holidays, right? So, and he was saying that to his cancer mom. So that dynamic is definitely there. But his karma is his karma. It's not my karma.
That's right.
So I think that it's a really important lesson, that mom, non-mom thing, because we are both. We are the moms and we are the non-moms. We're the moms that uh, catapult the rest of you into your being. Does that make
Well,
sense?
yes, it does. And I'm interested, since you are a Cancer woman and you had a Cancer mother,
Yeah.
you're the perfect person to ask, what was it like? I know that neither of your charts are absolutely perfect, but just in general,
Well,
what was it like to answer to a Cancerian woman?
right, right. I was her angel child from the moment I was born. That's how she referenced me. Um, I was her only Cancer. Oh, no, I take that back. Her other Cancer child was the one that
Oh,
didn't really deserve the negative attention that she got, but she got all of the negative attention. I was the Cancer child that got the positive strokes.
Hmm.
And we turned out completely differently, even though our hearts were the same. Very big hearts, gullible, wanting to solve everybody else's problems, you know. But we were treated differently by the same mom.
Well,
Same,
you have to go back and look and see how she was treated,
right,
and on and on and on.
right. Exactly. Mom, non-mom, right? So it's
Mom, that's a
that,
good way of putting it. Yeah.
yeah, well, it helps to alleviate that guilt. It helps to, to realize that it's really not it's not mine to own.
It would be interesting to see where your
Yeah.
moons are, Anita,
Mhm.
because some people look at the moon saying that it represents the relationship of the mother with that child, not with every child,
Mhm.
but that maternal experience with that one child
Mhm.
can be one way, even though it might be different for another child.
That's true. And I don't know Terry's. I know mine was Aries, but I don't know Terry's. That's a good point.
What was your mother's moon placement?
I don't know.
Hmm. Okay, well, thank you very much. Those are really good points. I'm glad to hear from you. I want to let everybody know in our last few minutes about the good luck I have next week, because I get a week off. And let's let Rick C and Claudia tell us about next week's show.
Well. We are both so excited.
We are.
Mm.
We are going to,
This time we're going to record it.
this
Yes.
time we're going to record it, and for posterity. We're excited, and I don't think, for those of you that heard the Chiron talk the first time, I really don't believe it's going to be a do-over, but we are going to do another Chiron evening. And this time I think we're going to weave in other learnings and other things. So it'll be fun. And I don't know
We're
if
very excited. We are definitely doing different things than we did the first time, but we are the same people who have learned and grown more.
Well,
and it is still the same topic. However,
Right.
we kind of
I
tune
want
in.
to I want to ask you to, at least one of you, please send me a paragraph of that encapsulates your discussion, so I can promoted it on Tuesday. Thanks to everybody for staying put through a delicate topic. I hope you found that it helps you. I don't care where your moon is, these moon attributes are going to pertain to you. And I think one of the real big things about the night is if you expand this kind of energy that we're talking about, you can see United States. You can see why the USA is the way it is. So anyhow, my job is to find out why the Canadians have it a lot easier. I can't figure that out yet. Anyhow,
That would be an interesting topic sometime.
it would be. You guys are going to get to see everybody else next week, and I won't. We'll be on every week dancing around Christmas and around New Year's because of the way things fall. But thank you for tuning in. Thanks, everybody. Thanks to Anita. Thanks to Claudia. Thanks to everybody.
Thanks, Rick.
Well, Kathy, I hope you're
Bye,
feeling better.
Rick. Good night, everybody. See you
Bye.
next
Good night.
week.
Take care, all.
Week.
Erica
Hi,
said,
Shelby.
Erica said,
Shelby's
mother
here.
and apple pie, America. She's
Hey,
Right.
don't forget to check out the meteor shower tonight.
okay.
Yes.
I'm going to go do that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Take care.
Which
Bye.
one is it? Which one? What
Leonids,
direction?
baby.
In the direction of
Would
Leo?
be the Leonids.
I
Towards
don't
Leo?